morning and welcome to the CABE webinar Wednesday. Today we're looking at how to better prepare for your retirement with Kevin Hollister, founder of Guide, and Dianne Sullivan, an IFA qualified financial coach. In this webinar, Kevin and Dianne will discuss retirement planning with a unique retirement planning tool available to CABE members. My name is Shanika and I'm the Training and Learning Coordinator here at CABE, and I'll be acting as moderator for this morning's session. We strive to create interactive webinars, so we do encourage you to submit any questions you may have during the session. These questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We'll get through as many as possible, but if we do run out of time, we'll collect any questions and send out the answers in due course. You can also contact us on webinars@cbuilde.com. If you're watching us live today, you can use the side panel to send in your questions. Alternatively, you can get in touch with us via the social links now on screen. So let me introduce today's webinar speakers. So Kevin is the founder of Guide. He has previous pension scheme actuary with over 25 years experience in pensions, investments and modelling. In 2020, Kevin launched Guide to use this knowledge to help individuals plan their retirement. Dianne is an IFA qualified financial coach, and through working with her coaching clients, helps people build their knowledge and confidence to gain control of their own financial planning. If you give me a couple of seconds, I'll hand over to Dianne and Kevin. I'll stop sharing and you guys can start sharing and do your presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Shanika. And it's great to be here this morning. And let me just share my screen. Okay. So hopefully now you can all see the slide. You are in control. Prepare well for your retirement. So as Shanika said, I'm a financial coach and I work with clients to mostly help people prepare well for retirement, because that's the most common reason people are looking for a financial coach like me. And as part of that coaching, I use Guide as one of the core tools to help people to empower themselves to prepare for their retirement. And so I'll just go through some slides here. As Shanika said, think of the questions that you have that you want to ask at the end. I'll go through my section, hand over to Kevin to take you through the Guide demo, and then, we'll move over to your questions. So firstly, here's what I'm going to go through, which is the principles of why you need to take responsibility for your retirement, some basics of how you can plan well, the decisions that you have at the point of retirement, how much income do you need, how much you need to save. Now, I'm well aware that there's likely to be a whole range of ages watching this webinar today, and what you will need to do and what you need to think about will, of course, vary depending on how far away you are from the date that you think you might want to be retiring. But the good news is that even if you're relatively close to retirement age, there's still a lot you can do if you are feeling unprepared right now. Okay, so the tough message of why you need to take responsibility, but the good news is that you are in control, because the world of retirement has changed. In the private sector, the guaranteed pensions have mostly gone. There are some companies that still offer these that you may have known these as final salary pensions. They tend to be called in the past, often referred to as gold-plated. The technical term for them is defined benefit. What you have now in place in the private sector is defined contribution, where instead of your employer managing your pension for you and how much you will get and having that guaranteed amount, you now decide how much to invest and you decide where to invest. And you have the freedom of how to take your pension. In the past, if you didn't have a defined benefit pension, when you got to retirement, you converted that into an annuity, which is an insurance product that gives you a guaranteed income. Now you can choose whether or not you can have your decisions at retirement. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later on. And the great news is that we will all be living longer than previous generations. So we all have a longevity problem. And with a longevity problem, we need to make sure that we don't run out of money in what we all hope to be a long retirement. So here are the key milestones when planning for retirement, depending on whether you are 10 years out, 6 to 10 years before, or in the final 5 years before retirement. And you have less options when you're closer, but there's still a lot you can do if you're in the 5 years before retirement. So if you are 10 years away, if you don't already have one, and you should have one because of auto enrollment, then make sure you have a pension. And I'm not going to go through each point on here, but the key one is maximize your employer contributions, because maybe that it's possible that if you contribute more, your employer will contribute more. And fundamentally, save as much as you can, because a pension is a highly tax efficient wrapper that is the most efficient way of building up a fund for retirement. In the 6 to 10 years out, make sure that you're reviewing your fund at least once a year. And that's not just your pension, but all of your other savings that you have as well. I have a lot of clients that come to me in the final year or two before they're planning to retire. And so many of them tell me that they wish they had paid more attention earlier on. So if you are 6 to 10 years out, start looking and start thinking about how you will take your income from your pension. And then in the 5 years before, make sure that your investments are still meeting your attitude to risk. Maybe you want to change your risk profile in the run up to your retirement, but maybe not. Do have a look at the investment profile and make sure that your fund choice is meeting your investment risk. And start to decide how you will be taking an income from your pensions in the 5 years before as well. So, as I've touched upon, in case you're not aware, the decisions you have at retirement now with a defined contribution pension is that you keep the money invested in the stock market, keeping money invested, and you take your income through a flexi access drawdown, or you convert your pension into an annuity, which is, as I said, a financial insurance product that gives you a guaranteed income for life, or you can do a bit of both. And the other decision that is a big part of people's retirement is that you can decide whether or not you want to take the 25%, the technical term pension commencement lump sum, PCLS, that people commonly known as tax-free cash, take that as a lump sum, or decide that you want to spread that tax efficiency across your income. You don't have to take all the 25% upfront. And for many cases, if you don't know what to do with the money, if you don't have a specific purpose, such as, say, paying off your mortgage or helping your kids out with something like university, whatever, is that it's generally better to leave the money invested and not take it out just because you can. But that's, general. What's right for you is very specific to you and your circumstances when it comes to all of these decisions at retirement. Then, how much income do you need? So this comes from the Retirement Living Standards data, and they set the 3 income levels at retirement in case you don't have an idea. Ideally, you have an idea of what income is right for you. But again, many of my clients come to me and they say, well, they don't really know. So if you don't know, these gives you some idea, minimum, moderate and comfortable standards of living, and the current income levels that you need in order to achieve those 3 lifestyle levels. And some of the attributes of a minimum lifestyle is that this will cover all your basic needs. You might have occasional fun and social activities, and you could have perhaps one holiday in the UK, that kind of lifestyle. The other end of the scale, comfortable, is one that allows you to be more spontaneous with your money and includes several holidays per year. And there is a more detailed breakdown of what you'll be able to afford with each of these lifestyles on the website. But as I said, it's just a guideline if you don't have an idea. Ideally, you can calculate based on what is the right lifestyle for you, on how much you think you need, and whether you'll be a single or a part of a couple. But for those, I guess, standard income levels. Right now, only, not everyone is even achieving a minimum lifestyle level. Or about 76% of people are achieving that income in retirement, and 10% thereabouts with a comfortable level. So you can see that really you really need to pay attention to this to make sure that you're not having to have a minimum level in retirement, because I would say that the clue is in the name. Most people I would think want a moderate level at the very least. So super high level way to think about the various pots that the various investment choices that you have for your retirement. First and foremost, everybody needs, no matter what stage of life you're at, whether pre or post-retirement, everyone ideally should have that 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash as an emergency fund. Now, you can be more sophisticated about this in retirement with setting up cash ladders, etc., but that's the sort of basics of it, ideally having that as an emergency fund. But in the run-up to retirement, how to invest for it is that the pension is your best way of building up your investments because of, I'll give you an example in the next slide, because of the tax relief and the employer matching that you get if you are working for someone else, of course. But even if you are self-employed, paying into a SIP also means that you get the tax relief as well. And then next in order to think about for tax efficiency is stocks and shares, ISA. And only then, if you are in the very fortunate position of having any spare cash left over, only then should you be thinking about general investment accounts. Always be thinking about pensions and the ISAs as your tax efficient wrappers, which will make your income then more tax efficient when you come to take it in retirement. And that's something that Guide is very good at helping you with. So my final slide is that as an example of a fund that is in the right ballpark for having a comfortable retirement, this is to give you an idea of how much you would need to contribute if you were on a salary of £40,000, which makes you a basic rate taxpayer, and if you are 30, 20 or 10 years out from retirement. Now, this is starting from scratch. If you were 10 years away from retirement and you have absolutely nothing, and if you happen to be earning £40,000, yes, it's a stretch because you are contributing 41% of your gross income. But if, say, you were in that position and you had no mortgage and your expenses are relatively low, I just wanted to show that whilst it is a stretch, it's still achievable if you are relatively close to retirement and wanted to build up a big fund. But the most powerful tool we have when it comes to saving and investing is time. So the sooner you start, the better, because when you see if you start 30 years out, then to build up a fund of that size, the net cost to you per month is relatively small. It's just 4% of your gross income if you're earning £40,000. So that's it from me. I look forward to hearing and answering your questions at the end. And so at this point, I will stop sharing and hand over to Kevin for the Guide demo.
Okay, thank you very much, Dianne, for that introduction and for all of that help around pension planning. To introduce myself, I'm Kevin Hollister. I am a pensions actuary. I've been a pensions actuary for about 25 years. For people who don't know what an actuary is, essentially, I do all of the kind of complicated maths around pensions and how long people live and so forth, so that other people don't have to, because I'm sure they have much better things to do. And we built Guide about 4 years ago, or launched it to the public about 4 years ago, to try and help people to put everything they had together to plan retirement, whether they're in the phase of still building up money, what we call accumulation, or they're in the phase of actually taking down money, what we call decumulation. And the reason why we did that was because, as Dianne touched on, almost a decade ago now, the pension rules fundamentally changed. And instead of having to buy an income for life called an annuity at retirement with your pension pots, you now had complete freedom. You could take your money however you wanted when you get to retirement. And there was talk about people buying Lamborghinis, etc. But the truth of the matter is people have been much more careful with that. But at the same time, that freedom now means that there is a lot of responsibility for people to manage their own retirement, both in planning for it in accumulation and taking that money down in decumulation. So we built Guide because advice wasn't made compulsory. Quite rightly, people should choose whether they take advice or not. So for people who are not taking advice, we built guides to effectively try and do all the maths for people and to try and work out how to use what they have to get what they want. And in providing this tool, we do signpost to advisors if people want to take advice. If you feel that you can manage this on your own, that's perfectly fine. If not, we have advisors that we undertake some due diligence on, make sure that they will give you good advice and so forth. And we also signpost to providers. So should you get to retirement and you want to put all of your pots into one place, to take an income from one particular place rather than dealing with maybe 4 or 5 providers you've accumulated over the years, you can do that as well. To be totally clear, we don't receive any referral fees from those partners. Our site is completely free to use. We're not trying to sell anybody anything. It is there to effectively help people either plan on their own or to start a plan themselves and then look to what could be the right kind of advisor or provider for them to use. We've been going, as I say, a few years now. We've accumulated quite a few Trustpilot reviews. I like to think that virtually all of our Trustpilot reviews are really favourable. You can check them out on Trustpilot by just looking up Guide. And one of the core feedback that comes back quite a lot is hopefully it's easy to use, but the outputs are really quite detailed in helping people to reduce their tax and put everything together to effectively get what they want. So there are lots, before I come on to this, there are lots of probably what I would call quite basic tools which you could use. And what those basic tools will probably tell you is if you've got built up a pot of £100,000 and you take X amount per year and you get a return of Y amount, then your fund is going to last for 20 years, for example. The problem with that is, although they're really simple to use and they can be good just to give people a basic idea, they're not really of any practical use to most people because virtually everybody won't just have a pension pot, defined contribution pension pot that they can use in retirement. Nearly everybody is going to have a state pension, whether that's a full state pension, a partial state pension or so forth. Lots of people, especially people coming up to retirement now, may have been lucky enough to have been in a final salary scheme. Dianne described what were called gold-plated schemes at some point during their career, and they may have a guaranteed income from that final salary scheme as well. You won't just have pensions, as Dianne discussed, you'll have savings, ISAs and so forth. All of those can be used towards retirement, and people just don't walk out of the door on a set day and then completely retire these days. Lots of people move to part-time work and so forth. They may have other income, they may be able to downsize their home or, expect to do that to support their retirement and so forth. So everybody will have lots of things, at least a couple of different elements to put towards their retirement income. Well, this loads up. Okay, so at the start of our journey, this is our first page. There's some more help there if you need some help on each and every page as to what to do. You'll see a help icon here as well. If you leave a question on there, we generally answer back within about sort of 5 minutes or so if you've got some questions about using the site itself. Obviously, I can't go into giving anybody advice, but if we get most of the questions we get is around, how do I use this particular element of this page, or what should I put in here, or how do I use this in my planning? And as I say, we can answer those questions really quickly for anybody who does need help. So if I start on our main journey, so this is where you build your initial plan. So first of all, we need to find out a little bit more about you. So we need to understand your date of birth. I'll put in someone who's a bit older. And we need to understand if you're male or female. There's no difference anymore with state pensions and so forth. It's all been equalised, but women live a little bit longer than men, about 1.5 to 2 years on average. So we factor that in when we look at how long you're likely to need a retirement income for. If you're over 55 here, this person's currently just under 55. But if you were over 55, then it would ask you if you've already started accessing your benefits, if you started accessing your pension pots. And we need to know that because how you access them and whether you decided to take tax-free cash when you first access them will decide the tax treatment of those withdrawals that you take from those pension pots going forward. So if you're over 55, we will ask that at this point. So let's say this person's male. You can choose a date, any date of which you want to target retirement, and any date between age 55, if you're lucky enough to have quite substantial pots and other incomes to put towards retirement, up to your state pension age. Beyond the state pension age, it starts to get really complicated around deferring your state pension and so forth. So we have that range of typical dates that people would look to retire from. So overwhelmingly, the two most popular ages are age 65 and age 60. But so I'll put in 65 here. And now we know when somebody's targeting when they want to retire. So, okay, so you want to retire at 65. How long are you likely to need an income for? So we, as an actuary, we can look on average how long people would be expected to live. As I say, it differs between males and females, and there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But the most overriding factor is what kind of health you are currently in. So if you say, I'd rather not say, then we just use average rates. If you was to say that you was in perfect health, as you can see, your life expectancy would be up to around 90 years. Now, that may be quite a lot more than people would actually expect. Most people don't think that they're going to live to, kind of 85 on average or so. But even with minor health issues, you would expect to live to around 87 or so on average. Life expectancy is improving, kind of pre-COVID, but life expectancy is improving all the time. There's a general trend for it to improve over time as medical facilities and diets and so forth get better. And this allows for the fact that you're retiring in a certain number of years' time, and then you would expect to live, if you reach 65, you would expect to live for, on average, another 22 years. So we want to build you a plan that is designed to last for at least that amount of time. Okay, so that's how long you're going to need your plan for, at least. Now, what do you want in terms of income and tax-free cash and so forth? So as Dianne said, you could take 25% of your pots as tax-free cash at retirement, all as one nice lump sum, or you can take 25% of each and every payment that you withdraw, that you make from the pension pot over time, tax-free. Now, overwhelmingly, people want that nice tax-free cash lump sum. So overwhelmingly, people do choose to take the tax-free cash. So we have a default there of yes, but you can switch that to no. if you keep it as yes, then we take 25% of your pot out at retirement, and we don't use that towards a long-term plan. We assume that you spend it on, I don't know, a great holiday, paying off the mortgage, paying off other debts, etc. So, and we won't use that towards your long-term plan. You can add some of that back in, which I'll show you on the next page. And then every payment that you get from your regular withdrawals will be taxed, will be taxable income. So if it goes over the tax-free allowance, then you will be taxed on that income. What sort of increases do you want after retirement? So do you want your pension to increase by 2.5% a year is our assumption. That's not to say that's what inflation will be, but effectively it's to protect the purchasing power of your money as you age. So effectively it rises at that point. If inflation's around the same level, you would expect to be able to your money to go as far as what it did previously. If you choose no, then the value of your money will decrease in real terms over time. You'll get flat income. It will be able to buy less and less each year. But for some people, especially if you've got quite a high retirement income, that may be reasonable, because people do typically, after up to about kind of early 70s, people spend, you know, quite a bit more money in retirement, and then they gradually, health issues and care issues aside, they gradually actually spend less money in the later years of retirement. We're all going to get less mobile as we get older. We won't be going on holidays as much. We probably, you know, give up the golf course membership and so forth. So people do generally spend a little bit less in real terms at, say, age 85 than low 80s than what they were at low 70s, for example. So we used to ask people what starting income they wanted to aim for, and the problem was nobody had any idea at all. But thankfully, a couple of years ago, there's this really good work from the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association, and they came up with different rates of after-tax income that you need to support different types of lifestyles. So Dianne showed you the rates that were there before. If you lived in London, those rates are a little bit more, because London's obviously more expensive to live. But if we look at, say, a minimum income, so you've got the 14,400 of what it is today, but, you know, if we were to project that up until retirement, then that number would actually be 19,400. If we look at a moderate income, it would be 42,000. So the 31,300 projected up until that date. But you can choose any number that you want. So if we said 30,000, which is somewhere in between the projected minimum and moderate income, you can do that. So you're effectively saying, okay, so I want more than the minimum. I realise I might not be able to have a moderate income or so forth. We'll check that later, but this is what I'm initially going to aim for. And then lots of people spend a little bit more money in the first few years of retirement. You're enjoying your nice newfound freedom. You want to go on a nice extra holiday each year and so forth. So you can choose to put in a bit more money there. And you can choose the number of years you'd want to do that for. So it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, just a couple of years and so forth. So once you put all of that in, you can then generate your income plan. And you can see that this person starting off, but it's the 30,000 a year. It's rising each year, and they've got a little bit more in the first 5 years where they've wanted to take some extra income. Okay, so that's what you want in terms of tax-free cash and income. So the next page is all about what have you got. So we bring in the state pension automatically. We bring in a full state pension. If you don't think you're going to get a full state pension, we help you later on to potentially pro rata that if you don't have enough NI contributions by the time you reach state pension age. And we help you see what you've got already in NI contributions and what you may, and estimate what you may get up until state pension age. And then if that's, for example, 30 years, then you need 35 years for the maximum, and you would get 30 divided by 35 times that full state pension, which has been revalued there to the to your actual state pension date. So the age is coming in, and the amount that's going to be paid revalued based on the lowest amount of revaluation at the moment, which is a 2.5% minimum. Is already brought in for you. As that changes each year, we're about to know what the state pension is going to be from April 2025. As that revalues, then we obviously uplift those figures, and it will give you a new projection based on the latest information that we know. Pension pot. So let's say that you've got, in your current employment, you've got £100,000 pot, and you're paying, both you and your employer in total are paying in £300 per month. And you can add as many pots as you've got, and you've got an old pension pot as well of £50,000 or so that you're not contributing to anymore. So you can see you wanted 25% tax-free cash at retirement. So these have been projected up until retirement. I'll come on to that in a minute. And then we're assuming you're going to take 25% straight away. So if you wanted to, you can add some of that money back in. You may say, okay, well, I'm going to spend 50k of that, pay off the last 50k of my mortgage, or so forth. But then, you've got you've got another 25k, which could, if you put in as other cash, will go directly into your savings at that point in time. Final salary pension. So if you're lucky enough to get an old final salary pension, you can put in, that's going to pay me £2,000 a year from age 65. You can get projections of that from your final salary scheme administrator. Okay, so I've got that income coming in. I've got an ISA as well with £20,000 in. And some of that tax-free cash I'm not going to spend, so I'll add that back in as other cash. So I'll say I'm not going to spend 25,000 of it, and that'll add that back in at retirement. Okay, so that's everything that you've got. If you add some other income, you could put in some part-time income, some part-time work or so forth. If you're lucky enough to rent out a property or so forth, you can put the rental income in from that. It just basically takes everything that you have, not just pensions, but savings, pension incomes, other types of income that are non-pension related, and you can put it all together. Okay. Okay, so this is when we come onto the page where effectively you can work everything out. So the first question we have is how much risk you're willing to take. And effectively, if we ask you what sort of return you would expect to get on your investments, it's very, after charges and so forth, it's very difficult for people to work that out. So what we do is we keep an update on market conditions and what you could expect reasonably from a default kind of investment strategy based on low, medium, higher risk return. So if you used to choose a low risk investment strategy, you might reasonably expect a kind of 3% type rate over time, on average over the long term, based on where markets are now. You can adjust that if you feel that that would be a bit higher. But once you go beyond 1% from that boundary, you're then shifting into what would be more of a medium risk scenario. So you can't say, oh, I'd like to take no risk at all, but I want a 7% return, for example. It's not kind of feasible. There's lots of help around how all of these things are calculated, or more information and so forth. So anywhere you can click on these question mark icons, and we will provide more information as to what's going on in the calculations, or what you need to enter, and so forth. You may not want to use all of your pot. So some people may say, I want to take an income, but ideally I'd like to pass on, say, £50,000 of my pension pots onto my family in some way. And you can do that. You can protect a certain amount, and we won't use that in generating an income unless you really have to, unless things effectively go wrong and you have some bad experience. But in our main calculations, we won't do that. Okay, so we've now got the answer, and the answer is that you're going to see some shortfalls in the last few years of your life, or last few years of your average life expectancy. We want to build a plan that was going to work for at least 22 years. You can double click on any part of this to see how in each year the income that you get is made up. So you've got some state pension income coming in here, you've got final salary pension, and you've got your savings pots. In that year, you're not taking anything from your pension pots itself. Here, you're taking pension pots and savings pots and the small final salary pension before your state pension has kicked in. And we'll come on to that in a minute as why we do that and its tax efficiency and so forth. But effectively, you're going to see some shortfalls. All you've got is your fixed incomes in these years. You haven't got exactly enough for what you want. The blue line is what you want. The grey line is the tax that you'll pay. You can click on any of these and they'll fall away if you just want to see the tax, for example, that you pay. And then in the pots, you can see you've got your savings pots in yellow and your pension pots. Your savings pots run down quite quickly, and you've got your pension pots, and you're going to run out of money after 19 years or so. Okay, so there would be lots of ways that you could play around with that to potentially make it work, but we tried to make it really simple for people to say, look, well, what can you do to fix this? You can either take a little bit less money, or you can pay some more money in. So you can increase your contributions, or you can take a bit less money each year. So if I press solve, pay more. So you was paying £300 a month. If you increase that to £600 a month, then effectively that would work. That usually isn't particularly palatable for lots of people. So lots of people, overwhelmingly the majority of people choose less. Take less. So if you reduce the original amount you want by 10%, everything would be expected to work. So if you said, okay, that's fair enough, I wanted 30,000 and a bit more in the first few years, but I've reduced all that by 10%, I would be happy enough with that. And now we've got a plan that works, and your pots are expected to last throughout the course of the 20 or so years, with some excess left at the end as well, because we're doing kind of 5% drops. As Dianne was saying, you could use a combination of just taking money from your pension pots, but you may want to buy some guaranteed income annuity as well. So you can actually look at that once you have a plan that works, that says, if I took 25% of my pot and I bought some guaranteed income, lifetime income and annuity, would my plan still work? So if you wanted to do a bit of combination of both, you can do that, and then you can find out a bit later more details on effectively how to do that. But this can show to you, well, you could use a combination of both, and it does it really kind of quickly and simply. I won't add that in. Okay, so you've built a plan. It's going to work if everything goes as expected. Isn't that great? It is great, but as we all know, things aren't going to go as expected. So we start off with we give a few scenarios of things that could go wrong or could lead you to needing more money. So what could go wrong? Well, you could get lower growth than what you expected. You'd allowed for 5%. What if you only got 4% on average? So CABE, based on the income that you want to take, your plan would still be expected to work. You could live a bit longer. That's not really something that's going wrong. It's a nice thing if you live a bit longer, but you're going to need more money. And would your plan still be expected to work if you lived 3 years longer than the 22 years or so that we assumed? Here you can see that would still be the case. If there was a market crash, so just after you retire, if your pension pots, your savings pots go down by 20%, there's a big market crash. It has the biggest effect just after you retire, when your pots are the largest. If that was to happen, would your plan still work? Usually that's the hardest test to solve. In this case, it shows that your plan wouldn't still work. But if you were really worried about that, you could take less, and it will calculate how much you've reduced by 10%. Now it's telling you if you reduced by 15% rather than 10%, then you would have a plan that worked, even if that was to happen. If you're worried about that, you could do that. If you're not, you could say, okay, I'll live with the risk that doesn't happen. And then finally, some care. Nobody knows how much their care, any care may cost, or whether they would need it, or so forth. So we look at, there's a wide range between just someone coming to visit to full-time residential care. But we say if you needed, say, £50,000 a year in the last couple of years of your life to put towards some care, you didn't have other assets to pay for that, you had to use your pension pots and so forth, you know, could you afford that? And again, that can give you a scenario where you can take less money, but you still have enough to pay for that should that ever occur. So we've built a plan, we've tested it, we're happy with the risks of certain things going wrong. You know, we'll live with those risks. So here comes a summary, effectively, of everything that you have, what you want, move that across, what you want, what you're planning to do around tax-free cash, what you've assumed in types of the rate of return that you get in your pensions and savings pots, all the things that you've put towards it. So that's a summary of everything that you want and what you've got. And here is effectively your plan of how to build it. So this will go on if you can, if you register your email, it will save your plan for you, so that when you come back in, you don't have to enter anything again. And it will effectively, then you can see the whole plan as well out to 40 years, or sorry, 22 years. And you can download a report as well if that's what you want to do. But effectively, this shows you how to get that amount of income that you want, and it shows you each month as well, using everything you have. And the two flexible parts, your pensions and your savings pots, and then everything else you expect to get. So you had a small final salary pension, then a couple of years later, you've got the small final salary pension plus your state pension. And we split it between pensions and savings pots in this way to make it as tax efficient as possible. So each year you want to be, because pension pot income is taxed, each year you want to be taking the maximum you can from your pension pots up to the tax-free allowance to extract that money from your pension pots and not pay any tax on it. So in the first couple of years, you can see if you use a combination of pensions and savings pots, on top of what else you have, you don't pay any tax at all, and you can effectively get what you want there without paying any tax. And then we continue to do that till you run out of savings, and then obviously you've got to take it all from your pension pots. If you need help around providers or advisors and so forth, they're all in here. If you want to get some guaranteed income quotes, it's all in here. And here is all of the kind of risk warnings, general assumptions and so forth. And then very quickly, it's not a static one and done that you've done this. This is here to support you all the time in your build up towards retirement. You're going to tweak things, you're going to change things, tax rates are going to change, the state pension is going to change, etc. You can do all of that. You don't have to go back into the main journey. If you go into our dashboard, once you've saved the plan, you can go into our dashboard and let's say you come back 6 months later, you update the value of your pension pots, etc. It will feed into what is your plan. How does your plan now look 6 months later? So the parts that are likely to change, your pension pots, the value of those, what you're paying into them, your savings pots, they can all change, and it will feed directly into the results. So you can monitor that whenever you want, not just up to retirement, into retirement as well. You can use this tool in years and years to come throughout retirement. It's always going to be that kind of helping hand, which is there to say, all right, okay, I'm in my 70s now. Have I still got enough money to kind of live on till what my expected average age to survive to is then once I'm 70? And obviously that will be pushed out from what it was when you reach 65 in the first place. So that is probably a good place for me to stop. I may have gone a little bit over, but to stop and take any questions that people may have.
Thank you, Dianne and Kevin. Anyone who would like to submit your questions, you can do so now. Alternatively, you can send them to webinars@cbuilde.com, and I can send them to Kevin, Dianne later. But thank you all for listening. Just to remind you, this session has been recorded and will be uploaded to our CABE YouTube channel soon, and you can share it with your colleagues. We don't have any questions at the moment, so we might get some a bit later. But thank you both. stop recording.